Chag Kadosh, good evening. We're going to be continuing with Parashat Yitro. So when it says Vayishma Yitro, is Perek Yudchet Pasuk Aleph, Yitro heard. First of all, when did Yitro come? So there's actually a machloket between the rabbis whether this entire story of Yitro happened before Matan Torah or after Matan Torah. Which means that when Yitro came, what did he hear? Did he hear about Matan Torah as well? And therefore he came after Matan Torah? Or did it come beforehand? Now there's the Ibn Ezra, that he actually comes and he says that it was after Matan Torah, and he wants to bring around 5 different proofs why it happened after Matan Torah. He says, first of all, it says over there, so he says, from the fact that it was already the war of Amalek, which we're going to read on Purim coming up right now, right? That was last week's Parashat, the Maftir, right? That was Vayavo Amalek. Now, Amalek was in Refidim, and it's written, Vayisum in Refidim, they traveled from Refidim, and they came to Midbar Sinai. Vayichan Sham Yisrael neged Ahar. So the fact that it says, Vayavo el Hara Elohim, so it was already Har Sinai, it was already Hara Elohim, it was already the mountain of God, even beforehand. So says the Ibn Ezra, that's proof number 1, that it was actually before, that means this story of Vayishma Yitro actually happened after Matan Torah. Meaning, even though we're going to read now the 10 Commandments and Eliyat Shishi, right? That's when we read the Aseret HaDibrot. Really, Yitro came after that, after the 10 Commandments, after there was already Har Sinai. Then he brings down another proof. He says that Yitro brought Ola Uzvachim Lelokim. He brought sacrifices. Now, it's not written that he built a new Mizbeach. So if he didn't build a new Mizbeach, how could it be? Right? So therefore, it has to be, it was after Matan Torah, and after Moshe Rabbeinu already made a Mizbeach, he made an altar, and therefore they brought the sacrifices on this Mizbeach. Then he continues going and he continues bringing a few other proofs. The Ramban, though, comes and he argues with all his strength. He actually answers up a few of them, but not all of them. And according to Shitat Ramban, he comes and it says it was before Matan Torah. So there is actually a machloket between the rabbis. When did Yitro come? Did Yitro come before Matan Torah or after Matan Torah? It's important to know because I'm sure you'll see it throughout, whether it's explanations or commentaries on the Parasha, that they're going to come and they're going to bring this down. Now, what happens is Yitro comes, right, with the wife of Moshe Rabbeinu. What does that mean? Achar shilucheha, after he sent her away. So Rabbi Yoshua says he gave her a get. What does that mean? That means he sent away his wife. He already gave her a get. Now, we're not talking about later on in the desert, right? We're talking about already here. He already gave her a get. He says, why? When it says shiluchea or shiluach, right? There's some people here in the Bet Knesset that they send their wives off during the summer. And they go, whether it's to Toronto or they go to other places, and he always makes a joke and he says it's shiluach haken. He's sending the mother bird away with the children, Kilo. He's sending away the mother, right? He's sending them away. Now, the truth is, though, the word shiluach, the word to send away, right? He told me it was actually written in his ketubah, that shalosh regalim, they have to do it by the in-laws. Yeah, it's an interesting ketubah. No, that was a condition written in the ketubah. Yeah, ketubah is a planchar, ketubah is a serton. Yeah, another thing, you're going to go every shalosh regalim los suegros. No, isn't that the biggest beracha? Yeah, shalosh regalim, you go to the in-laws. Yeah? Baruch Hashem.
In New York,
right.
They send them in a Catskill.
Exactly. They send them away. Yeah. You have to remember.
Religious. In the restaurant, you see just men.
Just men. Of
Hasidic.
Course. The women are away. The men are having a party. Yeah, 100%. But do you know that they actually say that about Adam Rishon? They say, why was Adam Rishon the happiest man alive? He had no suegros. Okay, fine. So let's go. So he says over here, it says, Ne'emar kan shiloach, right? Ve'ne'emar lehalan shiloach. It says shiloach by 2 things. It says, Ve'katav la sever kritut. He wrote for them a sever kritut, which means a book of destroying, which is writing off. Because a get, when a person gives a get, a divorce bill, see, right, to the wife, what happens is he's sending her off. V'shilcha beto, he sends her from the house. So therefore it says, right, that is the first shita of the Gemara. So he comes and he says, what happened? Moshe Rabbeinu was bringing his wife, his children to Mitzrayim. Aaron HaKohen comes and he sees them. And he finds him, he kisses him, he hugs him. And he says, where were you all these years? He comes and he says, I was in Midian. And he says, who are these people? Aharon didn't know his sister-in-law or his nephews. He didn't know who they were. Yeah, remember, Moshe Rabbeinu left Mitzrayim, and he didn't come back until HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, and that's when he met Aaron, which means that he didn't see Aaron HaKohen, he didn't see his brother for so many years. Aaron didn't even know who was the sister-in-law or the children. He didn't know. So he comes and he says, well, this is my wife and my children. So he tells him, and where are you taking them? He says, I'm taking them to Mitzrayim. He says, in Mitzrayim, we already have a wachlai, you know, we already have a balagan there. We have so many people there. You're going to add on more people? Look, all the people that are suffering in Mitzrayim in Egypt. We're going to bring them out as well? What's going on? So what did he say? You're right. He went and he takes his wife and his children and tells them, go to your father's house. Go back home. Yeah, that's why it's written after he sent her off. He sent her off because he sent her on the mission, right? Because he wasn't going to take her to Mitzrayim to get into more problems. Imagine you're going to take them more slaves into Mitzrayim. You didn't want that. I always had a question against this. You know, the question that I had against this was, where did Moshe Rabbeinu come from? Which Shevet? Shevet Levi. We actually almost finished the Zohar. Yeah, it was interesting. Yitro. They didn't work, Shevet Levi. So maybe what are you going to tell me? Yeah, maybe it was for Tzipora. But there's a machloket. Were women part of the subjugation or not? Subjugation, that they had to work. If women had to work in Mitzrayim or not. Some midrashim say women had to work. And what's the proof? Because part of the avodah, the service is that the men had to do women's jobs and women had to do the men's jobs. They switched. Very good. Other midrashim say the women never worked. The women never worked. So according to that, so then what's the problem? Okay, so so maybe the explanation is not the mamash under the shibud, the actual slavery, you're right? But it was just to bring more people into Mitzrayim. They already had enough problems. They didn't want to start adding more people. You understand? If they already have the slaves there,
they were having 6 and
100%. But that was naturally, they were giving birth there. But to bring from the outside more, you understand? To bring from the outside more people, that's a little bit worse. You understand? If they're already there, they're there. But to bring them from the outside, then no. You understand? I'm going to actually put it on pause for a second. Yeah, now it says, Moshe Rabbeinu, he's accompanied, Yitro comes with the wife and the 2 children. Who are we referring to? So it says, from here, the Menucha, the Rabbeinu Bachyai. Yeah, Rabbeinu Bachyai, right? I don't see people jumping. He says, the Rabbeinu Bachyai, he says over here, why does it say her children? It should say his children as well, or their children. Yeah, I still remember somebody once called up and they said, Rabbi, yeah, my wife had a boy. I said, it's only your wife. It's you. You also had a boy. You both had a boy. What do you mean your wife had a boy? It's only hers, not yours. Yeah. So it's both of you. We had a boy. That's what you're supposed to say. So why does it say over here, ve'et shenev vanea, her children? So it says, why? Derech hakatuv liyaches banim lahem, כדכתיב אלה בן אליה, ואת הבנות לאב, כדכתיב ואת דינה ביתו. What does that mean? It says usually the pasuk will always put the boys after the mother and the girls after the father. Yeah, why? He says this is a proof to that which the Gemara says, Isha mazrat chila yuledet zachar, which means what is the cause of a boy and what is the cause of a girl? Very good. The Gemara Berachot, the Gemara Nida, the Gemara many Gemarot. The Gemara says what is the cause, which means that it all depends, right? Who actually. So the one the Gemara there says who sends the seed first, that is the one that it's going to be. Which means if the man sends the seeds first, and then the woman is going to send her seed, so then what happens? It becomes a girl. And if it's the woman that sends the seed first, and then it's the man, it's a boy. So therefore, the boys are the cause of the women, and the girls are the cause of the men. And that's why there's also a connection. There's a special connection of father-daughter, right? And the son and mother. Special connection. And it's all to do with what we just mentioned over here, right? It's a special connection, but it's written already in the Parashat. That's what Rabbeinu Bachyai. The Sechel Tov, though, he says another reason, though. He says it's the name of the Zohar HaKadosh, right? And he says, what does it say in the name of the Zohar? No, what happened? Moshe Rabbeinu sent the children off with the mother. So who grew up the children for a few years? Even if it was just for a few years, but who was it? The mother. So because of that, it called her, right, Banea, her children. Why? She was the one that took care of them. even though it was very short time. Remember, when he was going to Mitzrayim, it was only a year around, right? A year and a half by the time everything's happening. But even if it was a year and a half, still, she was the one that took care of them. So therefore, it was her children. Now, when it says, right, what does that mean? It says, even though there wasn't there where they actually gave birth, so he comes and he says something incredible. He says, why is it that they called one Gereshom and one Eliezer? Gereshom was Ger, ki ger hayiti be'eretz nochriya. Eliezer, ki Elohei avi be'ezri. Ger hayiti be'eretz nochriya means I was a stranger in a land that wasn't, he was a stranger in a different land. That's Gereshom. But what was Eliezer? Eliezer was ki Elohei avi be'ezri ve'atzileni micherev paro. That the God of my father was with me and he saved me from the sword of Paro. What happened exactly? Right? You have to remember that after the Tam Vaviram, they snitched on Moshe Rabbeinu. Paro came and he wanted to kill, right? This is brought down in Rashi. He wanted to kill Moshe Rabbeinu. What happened? When he went to kill them with the sword, his tzavad, his neck, became marble. So it didn't afflict him. What happened was it broke, right? He smashed the sword against the neck and nothing happened, right? Because it became marble. So he says, Paro, you save me from the sword of Paro. Because if not, where was the sword of Paro? It's not written anywhere else, the sword of Paro. So he says, no, that was the explanation, that he saved him from the sword of Paro. We're talking about way before the Makot. We're talking about way before when Moshe Rabbeinu ran away from Mitzrayim. We're talking many years before. Because remember, he was the king of Cush for how many years? For 40 years, right? He ran away. He was away for a good 60, 70 years. You understand? He was away from Mitzrayim, right? He grew up in the house of Paro, and then he ran away. And then when he came back, it was already after 60, 70 years by the time, because he was 80 when he came back, right, to Mitzrayim. And he didn't take off when he was 50. He took off when he was young. He was a young boy, a young person, a young lad. So he says over here, though, but the question is, which one should have been named first? Which name should have been named first? Eliezer or Gereshom? Which miracle happened first? Was he saved from the sword of Paro first, and then he multiplied in a land that was not his? Or did he multiply in a land that was not his, and then he was saved from the sword of Paro? So which one is it usually? He was saved from the sword of Paro first. So the first child should have been Eliezer, and the second child should have been Gereshom. So we're going to finish with this, and he comes and he says there's a few reasons. One of the Rishonim says that he still wasn't saved from Paro until Paro died later on. So therefore, since he wasn't saved 100% from Paro until later, right? So because that's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them, metu kol anashim vakshim enashecha, that they died, all the people that are looking after you, looking for you, and that was referring to Paro. So therefore, he wasn't saved completely. He was still a fugitive. So since he was still a fugitive, this firstborn boy, he called him Gereshom. Gerayiti berezochriya, but what? HaKadosh Baruch Hu made me multiply in a land that was not mine, which was in Midian. He made me fruitful. Afterwards, when he heard that Paro passed away, that this was the original Paro that wanted to kill him, now all of a sudden he comes and he says, Eliezer, he calls his son Eliezer because now he was saved. He was saved from the sword of Paro. That's one answer of the Rishonim. However, though, there's another answer, a beautiful answer, which is the answer of the Meshech Chochmah. The Meshech Chochmah comes and he answers, he didn't want to give the first boy, right? He didn't want to give him the name of Eliezer because he didn't want to have El in his name, because the child that came from Gereshom was the one that became a komer to Avodah Zarah, which means that Moshe Rabbeinu was punished. Moshe Rabbeinu made a deal with a suegro, with a father-in-law. Yeah? Learn from this, yeah? Never made So he says, yeah, you're a tzaddik, you have all your, son, everyone, yeah, but that's the way it is, right? But what happened? You don't make a deal with the father-in-law. You made a deal with the father-in-law. What was the deal with the father-in-law? The first boy is going to become to Avodah Zarah. He's going to go with you. Because of that deal, Moshe Rabbeinu's grandson, right, that comes from Moshe Rabbeinu, from Gershom, became a komer to Avodah Zarah. He became a priest to Avodah Zarah, right? It's written down. He became a priest to Avodah Zarah. Think about it, Moshe Rabbeinu's grandson, right? Because of what? The punishment. So if he would have called the first child Eliezer, it would have had the name of Hashem in there. He didn't want that the first child should have El, the name of Hashem, because of what's going to happen later on. So that's the answer of the Meshech Chochmah. But the last answer, and this is what we're going to finish, is in the name of the Chassid, Imre Noam, in the name of the Chassid, he says, Adam yeshlo likro shem beno al shem hanesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu oseh laadam mikaro ve'omed bo, af al pi she'asa lo nes acher techila. A person has two miracles. Dos milagros. One now, Yeah, and one in 10 years. Yeah, or 10 years ago. He's two miracles. One right now, present, and one many years ago. You're going to call your child. Who do you call your child after? The one of the miracle right now, or the one that happened 10 years ago? Says the Ibn Noam in the name of the Chassid, the one right now. Because since right now you're presently in a miracle, you're presently seeing the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the hand of Hashem, you have to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for now. Then later on, you could thank for the previous miracles. So therefore it says, that's why, first of all, he wanted to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for right now. Right now, he made him fruitful, so get a shom. After, he already thanked HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the miracle now, and now he's going to thank the miracle that happened many years ago, which was Eliezer. So according to that, we understand exactly what was going on. Adonai chafetz leman tzidko yagdil Torah v'yadir. Amen.